I remember the exact moment I realized I'd been played. It was a Tuesday morning. The air in the conference room smelled like stale coffee and expensive cologne. My boss Marcus sat at the head of the table, his fingers drumming against the polished wood. Next to him was Jenna. The woman I'd trained from day one. The woman who couldn't close a single deal without my notes 6 months ago. And she was wearing the smile I used to have. Marcus cleared his throat. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Emma, we've made some organizational changes." That's when I knew. 5 years. 5 years I'd given them everything. I'd saved their business when they were bleeding money and losing clients left and right. I'd brought in accounts they couldn't even dream of reaching. I'd worked weekends, missed birthdays, canceled vacations. And they were about to throw me away like I was nothing. If you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I promise you'll want to hear how this ends. Trust me. Let me take you back. Back to where it all started. My name is Emma, and I was 26 when I joined Sterling Associates. It was a mid-sized consulting firm that specialized in digital transformation for Fortune 500 companies. Sounds fancy, right? It wasn't. When I walked through those doors on my first day, the place was dying. They'd lost 3 major clients in 4 months. Their biggest competitor had poached their top sales team. The office had that desperate energy. You know the kind. Where people whisper in corners and update their LinkedIn profiles during lunch breaks. Marcus Sterling, the founder, was a smooth-talking MBA graduate who'd inherited his father's business connections but none of his father's instinct for people. He was good at golf. Good at cocktail parties. Terrible at actually running a company. He hired me because I was cheap. Fresh out of grad school. Hungry. Willing to work for a salary that made my friends wince when I told them. But I had something they needed. I could talk to people. Really talk to them. Not that corporate doublespeak nonsense. I understood what clients actually wanted, not what they said they wanted in meetings. My first week, I sat in on a pitch meeting. We were trying to win back a client called Meridian Tech. They'd left us for our competitor 6 months earlier. Marcus and his senior team had prepared this elaborate PowerPoint presentation. 83 slides. I counted. The Meridian CEO, a woman named Sarah Chin, looked bored by slide 12. I watched her. Really watched her. She kept glancing at her phone. Checking the time. Her assistant had brought her coffee but it sat untouched, getting cold. Marcus droned on about synergies and optimization frameworks. I made a decision that probably should have gotten me fired. I stood up. Walked right to the projector. And turned it off. The room went silent. Marcus looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. "Sarah," I said. "Can I ask you something?" She looked up. Surprised. "Sure. Why did you really leave Sterling?" The room got even quieter. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Sarah put down her phone. For the first time that morning, she looked interested. "You want the truth?" she asked. "I always want the truth." She leaned back in her chair. "Your team never listened. They sold us a solution for a problem we told them we didn't have. When we tried to explain what we actually needed, they insisted their way was better. They made us feel stupid for not understanding their vision." I nodded. "What if I told you I could give you exactly what you need, in plain English, with no bullshit?" Marcus tried to interrupt. "Emma, I don't think 60 days, I said, cutting him off. My heart was pounding but my voice stayed steady. "Give me 60 days. If I don't deliver exactly what you need, you don't pay a penny." Sarah studied me. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. "Okay," she said. "But I'm working with you." Not him. She pointed at Marcus. That's how it started. I spent the next 2 months practically living at Meridian Tech. I interviewed everyone from the CEO to the night security guard. I learned their processes, their pain points, their fears, their goals. I didn't give them what Sterling had always given clients. I gave them what they actually needed. We won back Meridian. Then word spread. Within 8 months, I'd brought in 7 new clients. Not small ones either. Major accounts. Companies with budgets bigger than Sterling's entire annual revenue had been the year before. People started calling me the miracle worker. The rainmaker. The one who could get in the door anywhere. I was good at my job. No. I was exceptional. And I knew it. Marcus knew it too. That's why he made me director of client relations when I turned 28. Youngest director in the company's history. He took me to fancy dinners. Introduced me to his country club friends. Told me I was the future of Sterling Associates. I believed him. God, I believed him. The office transformed. We moved to a bigger space downtown. Glass walls and modern furniture and a coffee bar that made actual good espresso. We hired more people. Young, hungry people who reminded me of myself. One of them was Jenna. Jenna was 24 when she joined as a junior associate. Fresh-faced. Eager. She had that Midwestern niceness that made clients feel comfortable. But she didn't know how to close deals. Didn't know how to navigate difficult conversations. Didn't know how to read a room. So I taught her. I spent hours with her. Shared my strategies. Brought her to my client meetings. Let her watch how I worked. Gave her my notes, my frameworks, my contacts. She soaked it up like a sponge. "You're so good at this," she'd say, her eyes wide with admiration. "I hope I can be like you someday." I liked her. She felt like a younger sister. Someone I could mentor the way I wished someone had mentored me. I had no idea I was training my replacement. Year 3 at Sterling. We landed our biggest client ever. Titan Core Industries. A multinational manufacturing company looking to completely overhaul their digital infrastructure. The contract was worth $12 million over 3 years. I'd been pursuing Titan Core for 8 months. Their VP of Operations, Richard Huang, was notoriously difficult. He'd turned down every consulting firm in the city. He didn't trust outsiders. Didn't believe anyone really understood manufacturing. I spent weeks learning about manufacturing. Read industry journals. Toured factory floors. Talked to assembly line workers. When I finally got my meeting with Richard, I didn't bring a PowerPoint. I brought a white piece of paper and a pen. "Tell me about your worst day," I said. He blinked. "What?" "Your worst day in the last year. The day that made you want to quit. Tell me about it." He did. For 45 minutes, he talked. About supply chain breakdowns. About legacy systems that couldn't communicate with each other. About watching his team work 18-hour days trying to manually reconcile data that should have been automated. I listened. Took notes. Asked questions. At the end, I said, "I can fix this. All of it. But I need you to trust me." He signed the contract 2 weeks later. Marcus was ecstatic. He threw a company party. Champagne and catered food and a speech about how Sterling Associates was now a major player. He thanked the team. Mentioned several people by name. He didn't mention me once. I told myself it didn't matter. I knew what I'd done. The clients knew. That was enough. It wasn't enough. After the party, Marcus called me into his office. I thought maybe he wanted to thank me privately. Give me a bonus. Acknowledge what I'd built. Instead, he said, Emma, I need you to start delegating more. You're too involved in every account. We need to scale you. Scale me. Like I was a process. A system. Something that could be replicated and mass-produced. I need to make sure the relationships hold, I said. These clients trust me personally. And that's a problem, Marcus replied. His tone was friendly, but his eyes were calculating. What happens if you get hit by a bus? The whole company collapses. We need to distribute the relationships. Something cold settled in my stomach. But I pushed it away. Okay, I said. We can transition things gradually. Great. I want Jenna to take the lead on Titan Core. I stared at him. Jenna? She's ready. You've trained her well. And Richard seems to like her. She sat in on 3 meetings. Richard barely knows her name. Then introduce them properly. Make the transition smooth. That's what a good leader does, Emma. She builds leaders, not dependents. The words stung because they were designed to. He was making me feel selfish for wanting credit for my own work. But I did it. Because I was a team player. Because I believed in the company. I brought Jenna deeper into Titan Core. Let her lead more of the conversations. Copied her on all my emails. Introduced her to Richard as my partner on the account. Richard was confused at first. I hired you, Emma. Not her. Jenna's brilliant, I assured him. And she needs to learn from the best, right? That's you. I was good at smoothing things over. Too good. Within 4 months, Jenna was running the Titan Core account. I was overseeing it, which meant I got copied on emails and attended the big meetings but did none of the real work. The same thing started happening with my other accounts. One by one, Marcus had me transition them. Always with that same explanation about scaling, about building a sustainable team, about not being a bottleneck. I was being systematically erased from my own success. But the worst part? I didn't see it coming. I thought I was being a good mentor. A team player. A leader. I was an idiot. Year 5. The year everything fell apart. It started with small things. Meetings I wasn't invited to. Decisions made without my input. Clients who started calling Jenna first instead of me. I told myself it was fine. I was senior now. Directors didn't need to be in every meeting. I should be focusing on strategy, on big picture stuff. Then came the reviews. Marcus called me in for my annual performance review. It was late November. The office had Christmas decorations up already. Someone had brought in cookies that smelled like cinnamon and false cheer. I sat across from Marcus in his corner office. Through the window behind him, I could see the city skyline. Gray clouds threatening snow. He slid a folder across the desk. My review. I opened it. Read the first line. Performance meets expectations. Not exceeds. Meets. I looked up. This has to be a mistake. It's not, Marcus said. His voice was gentle. Patronizing. Emma, you're a solid contributor. But your numbers this year weren't where they needed to be. My numbers? I brought in Titan Core. I maintained 7 major accounts. Jenna brought in Titan Core, he interrupted. You helped, of course. But she closed it. And those 7 accounts? You've transitioned most of them. Your individual contribution has decreased significantly. I felt like I'd been slapped. You told me to transition them. You said we needed to scale. And you did great work developing the team. But that's different from individual performance. We measure results, Emma. Not effort. I wanted to scream. To flip the desk. To tell him he was a liar and a fraud and he knew exactly what he was doing. Instead, I took a breath. What does this mean for my bonus? He winced. Just slightly. Given your performance rating, you'll receive the standard 3%. 3%. I'd gotten 15% the year before, when my name was still on everything. I see, I said quietly. Don't take it personally, Emma. Business is business. I stood up. Shook his hand. Smiled. And I started planning. That night, I went home to my tiny apartment. Poured myself a large glass of wine. And looked at my bank account. 5 years at Sterling. 5 years of 60-hour weeks and cancelled plans and sacrificed relationships. I had $43,000 in savings. It wasn't much. But it was enough. I opened my laptop. Started making a list. Every client I'd brought to Sterling. Every relationship I'd built. Every person who'd told me, I'm really only working with Sterling because of you. The list was long. Then I made another list. Every skill I had. Every gap in the market. Everything Sterling did wrong that I could do right. By 3 a.m, I had a plan. By dawn, I had a name for my company. I called it Catalyst Consulting. Because that's what I was. A catalyst. Not a cog in someone else's machine. I didn't quit right away. That would have been stupid. I spent the next 2 months preparing. I saved every file I legally could. Not client data, that would have been unethical and illegal. But my own frameworks. My methodologies. My training materials. I reached out quietly to people in my network. Not Sterling clients, not yet. But other connections. People I'd met at conferences. Friends from grad school who'd gone on to impressive jobs. Former colleagues who'd left Sterling before me. I told them I was thinking of going out on my own. Asked if they'd be willing to chat, to give advice. What I was really doing was planting seeds. By January, I had 3 potential clients lined up. Small projects, but enough to pay my bills for a few months. I gave my notice on a Friday. 2 weeks, professional and clean. Marcus looked surprised. Emma, if this is about the review, we can discuss. It's not, I lied. I've been offered an opportunity one can't pass up. Fully remote, better work-life balance. You understand. He studied me. I kept my face neutral. Well, he said finally. You'll be missed. You've been a real asset to the team. An asset. Not a person. An asset. Thank you, I said. I've learned a lot here. That part was true. I'd learned exactly what not to do. My last day was a blur of awkward goodbyes and half-hearted cake. Jenna gave me a card signed by the team. It said generic things about wishing me well. She hugged me at the door. I'm going to miss you so much. You taught me everything. You'll do great, I said. I meant it. She would do great. She'd do great taking credit for everything I'd built. I walked out of Sterling Associates at 5:30 on a cold February evening. The wind cut through my coat. My box of personal items felt light. 5 years reduced to a cactus plant, a coffee mug, and 3 framed certificates. I didn't feel sad. I felt free. The first month on my own was terrifying. I worked from my apartment. Set up a desk in the corner of my bedroom. Bought a decent microphone and webcam for video calls. Created a website in 2 days using a template and sheer determination. My savings dwindled. 43,000. 40,000. 38,000. But I landed my first real client. A mid-sized tech company looking to reorganize their customer success department. It was a 4-month contract worth $50,000. I'd made more than that in bonuses alone at Sterling some years. But this money was mine. Every dollar of it. And it felt like winning the lottery. I worked harder than I'd ever worked. 16-hour days. Weekends. Holidays. But this time, I was building something for myself. By month 3, I had 4 active clients. By month 6, I had 8. By month 9, I had to hire help. Her name was Priya. She was smart, organized, and refreshingly honest about what she didn't know. I paid her well. Treated her like a partner, not an assistant. "Why are you so nice?" she asked me once, laughing. "Every other boss I've had was a nightmare." "Because I remember what it's like to not be appreciated," I said. "And I never want anyone who works with me to feel that way." We grew. Not explosively. But steadily. Sustainably. I didn't try to compete with Sterling directly. I went after the clients they ignored. The mid-sized companies that were too small for the big consulting firms but too complex for the generic solutions. The companies that needed someone who actually listened. I built a reputation. Slowly. Carefully. Catalyst Consulting. The firm that actually cares. Year 2 of Catalyst. We had 15 employees. Real office space downtown, just 3 blocks from Sterling's building. Revenue of $2.4 million. I wasn't rich. After salaries and overhead and taxes, I probably made less than I would have as a director at Sterling. But I owned it. All of it. My success. My failure. My decisions. And people noticed. I started getting speaking requests. Industry conferences. Podcasts. A local business magazine did a profile on me. The Consultant Who Cares, How Emma Chin Built a Better Business. I saw it the day it published. Sat in a coffee shop with my tablet, reading about myself like I was reading about a stranger. The article talked about my approach. How I prioritized relationships over transactions. How my clients stayed with me year after year because they trusted me. It quoted several of my clients, including Richard Huang from Titan Core. Wait. Richard Huang? I read it again. Yes. Richard Huang. My former client. Sterling's biggest account. He was quoted saying, "Emma understood our business better than anyone." When she left Sterling, we seriously considered leaving too. We only stayed because of our contract obligations. But the moment that contract is up, we know where we're going. My heart started pounding. I called Richard. We'd stayed in loose touch, occasional LinkedIn messages, but I hadn't pushed anything. Hadn't wanted to burn bridges or create legal problems. "Richard, hi. I saw the magazine article." "Emma." His voice was warm. "How are you?" I meant what I said, by the way. The work Sterling has done since you left has been mediocre at best. Jenna's fine, but she's not you. Nobody's you. Our contract with them ends in November, right? November 15th, he confirmed. I've already told my team not to renew. I was planning to reach out to you. I took a breath. What if I told you I could give you everything Sterling gave you, but better and for 20% less? Silence. Then, send me a proposal. I hung up. Looked at Priya across our small office. We might just land Titan Core, I said. Her eyes went wide. The Titan Core? Your old client? They were never Sterling's client. They were mine. Sterling just borrowed them for a while. We spent 3 weeks on that proposal. Made it perfect. Every detail. Every number. Every promise backed up with evidence. I delivered it in person. Richard brought his whole leadership team. 8 people around a conference table, all looking at me with various levels of skepticism and hope. I didn't use a PowerPoint. I never did. You hired Sterling 5 years ago because you needed help. They sent you me. I fixed your problems. Then they took me off your account and gave you Jenna. Nice woman. Not the same. You've been frustrated for 2 years but stuck in a contract. Sound about right? Richard smiled. That's extremely accurate. Here's what I'm offering. Everything you had before, but better. Because now I own my company. Which means when you have a problem at 2 in the morning, you can call me. Not a junior associate. Not a partner who barely remembers your name. Me. The person who actually fixed your systems the first time. One of the other executives spoke up. Your firm is much smaller than Sterling. How do we know you can handle an account this size? Because I already did, I said simply. I built the entire Titan Core program at Sterling. Me. Personally. The only difference now is that my name is on the door instead of Marcus Sterling's. We went back and forth for 2 hours. They asked hard questions. I gave honest answers. At the end, Richard stood up. Extended his hand. We'll notify Sterling next week. Contract starts in December. I shook his hand. Kept my voice professional. You won't regret this. Outside, in my car, I let myself feel it. All of it. The vindication. The joy. The pure, savage satisfaction. I'd just stolen back my own client. And it was completely legal. Completely ethical. Completely perfect. I drove past Sterling's building on my way home. Looked up at the glass and steel tower. Wondered if Marcus knew yet. Probably not. He'd find out soon enough. The news broke 3 weeks later. I wasn't there to see Marcus's face when he found out, but I heard about it. Word travels fast in our industry. Apparently, he'd called an emergency meeting. Demanded to know how this happened. Blamed Jenna, even though she'd been doing exactly what he told her to do. Several people from Sterling reached out to me privately. Congratulated me. A few asked if I was hiring. But the best message came from Sarah Chin at Meridian Tech, remember her? My first client win at Sterling? Emma, I heard about Titan Core. Well done. Our contract with Sterling is up in March. Let's talk. That's when I realized something. It wasn't just going to be Titan Core. It was going to be all of them. Every client I'd brought to Sterling. Every relationship I'd built. Every person who'd told me they were only there because of me. They'd all been waiting. Watching. Hoping I'd come back for them. So I did. Over the next 8 months, Catalyst Consulting picked up 6 former Sterling clients. 6 major accounts. Millions of dollars in annual revenue. We had to expand. Fast. I hired carefully. People who shared my values. Who understood that clients were humans, not ATMs. We moved to a bigger office. Then an even bigger one. By year 3, Catalyst was doing $12 million in revenue. We had 42 employees. Real benefits. Competitive salaries. A culture where people actually wanted to come to work. I saw Sterling employees at industry events sometimes. They looked tired. Stressed. The company was contracting. Laying people off. Marcus had made a bad acquisition trying to make up for lost revenue. It had backfired spectacularly. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. My success was revenge enough. But apparently, it wasn't enough for Marcus. The call came on a Tuesday. My assistant said Marcus Sterling wanted to meet with me. I almost said no. What could he possibly want? Curiosity won. Tell him I have 15 minutes on Thursday at 4. Thursday at 4 was my worst time slot. End of the day. End of the week. I'd be tired and ready to leave, which meant the meeting would stay short. Marcus showed up exactly on time. He'd aged. Graying at the temples. Lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His suit was still expensive, but it didn't fit quite as well as it used to. "Emma," he said, extending his hand. "You look well." I shook it briefly. "Marcus. What can I do for you?" He sat down uninvited. Looked around my office. It was bigger than his used to be. Better view too. "Impressive," he said. "You've built something remarkable here." "Thank you. I'll get straight to the point. Sterling Associates is going through some challenges. Market conditions have been tough. We've lost a few key accounts." "I heard," I said neutrally. "I'm here to propose a partnership. A merger, actually. Sterling Associates and Catalyst Consulting. We'd combine our client bases, our resources. Create something bigger than either of us could build alone." I stared at him. He was serious. He actually thought I'd say yes. "Let me make sure I understand," I said slowly. "You want me to merge my successful, growing company with your failing company? It wouldn't be a takeover. It would be a true partnership. 50-50 ownership. What would I get out of this?" He leaned forward. "Access to Sterling's brand. Our reputation. Our existing infrastructure. I have my own brand. It's actually worth something now because it's based on trust, not on screwing over talented employees. I have my own infrastructure." "And your reputation?" I laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. "Marcus, your reputation is the reason I have so many clients. They all left you to come to me." His jaw tightened. "Emma, I know you're upset about how things ended. But this is business. Surely you can see past personal feelings." "You're right," I said. "This is business. So let me put it in business terms. Why would I, the owner of a profitable company with strong growth and high employee satisfaction, merge with a company that's hemorrhaging money and talent? What's my incentive? We could offer you protection. There are bigger firms circling, looking to acquire companies like yours. You might not have a choice." I smiled. "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check." I stood up. "Thank you for coming, Marcus. But I'm not interested. Catalyst will remain independent. Now, I have another meeting." He didn't move. "Emma, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable." "You're not. You can't still be angry about what happened. That was years ago. I gave you opportunities. I made you a director. That's when something inside me snapped. You made me a director and then systematically erased my contributions. You took credit for my work. You promoted the person I trained to replace me. You gave me a meets expectations review after I brought in your biggest client ever. And now you have the audacity to come into my office and ask me to save your failing company?" My voice had risen. I didn't care. "You thought I was easy to replace," I continued. "You thought anyone could do what I did if they just followed the process. You were wrong. And now you're paying for it. And you know what the best part is? I'm not even competing with you anymore. You're just collapsing under your own incompetence." Marcus's face had gone red. "You're making a mistake." "No. The mistake was thinking I needed you. I never did. You needed me. You just didn't realize it until it was too late." I opened my office door. Goodbye, Marcus. He left. Didn't say another word. Just walked out with as much dignity as he could scrape together. I closed the door. Sat down at my desk. My hands were shaking. Priya knocked softly. You okay? Yeah, I said. Yeah, I'm good. Better than good. I'd just turned down the man who tried to destroy my career. And it felt amazing. But it wasn't over. 2 weeks later, I got another call. This time from a lawyer. Sterling Associates was suing me for tortious interference with business relationships. They claimed I'd poached their clients, violated non-compete agreements, stolen proprietary information. It was all bullshit. I'd never signed a non-compete. I'd never stolen anything. The clients had left on their own, once their contracts expired. But it didn't matter if it was bullshit. A lawsuit was expensive. Distracting. Designed to hurt me even if they lost. I hired a good lawyer. A woman named Patricia who specialized in employment law. She read through Sterling's complaint. Looked up at me. This is desperate. They don't have a case. But they might be hoping you'll settle just to make it go away. I'm not settling, I said. Good. Because we're going to destroy them. The lawsuit dragged on for 6 months. Depositions. Discovery. Mountains of paperwork. They tried to prove I'd planned to leave and take clients while I was still employed. I showed them dated documents proving I'd only reached out to clients after their Sterling contracts had already expired. They tried to prove I'd used Sterling's proprietary methods. I showed them my own methodologies, developed years before I even joined Sterling, backed up with dated files and witness testimony from grad school professors. They tried to prove I'd violated a non-compete. I showed them my employment contract, which explicitly had no non-compete clause. Every accusation fell apart under basic scrutiny. Finally, 8 months after they filed, Sterling dropped the lawsuit. Quietly. No press release. No apology. Just a motion to dismiss. But the damage was done. To them, not me. The lawsuit had been public record. Industry publications covered it. People asked questions. Why was Sterling suing a former employee? Why were they so desperate? The narrative shifted. Sterling wasn't the victim of a poacher. They were a failing company trying to blame someone else for their problems. More clients left. More employees quit. Several came to work for me. Sterling lost 20% of their revenue in a year. Catalyst grew 30% in the same period. Karma, it turns out, has excellent timing. Year 4 of Catalyst. We hit 20 million in revenue. 75 employees. 3 offices in different cities. I was 32 years old. I'd been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, Fast Company. The consultant who cared so much she built an empire, one headline said. It was hyperbole. But it wasn't wrong. I got invited to speak at major conferences. Business schools asked me to guest lecture. A literary agent reached out about writing a book. My life had transformed. And not just professionally. I'd met someone. His name was Daniel. He was a photographer, which meant he understood creative work and long hours and the obsessive need to get things right. We'd met at a gallery opening. Started talking about light and shadow and somehow ended up talking until the gallery closed and the staff politely kicked us out. He made me laugh. Made me remember there was more to life than work. We moved in together after a year. He converted our spare bedroom into a darkroom. I didn't even mind the chemical smell. For the first time in my adult life, I had balance. Success and love and actual free time. I thought about Marcus sometimes. Wondered if he was happy. Probably not. Sterling was still limping along, but barely. They'd been acquired by a larger firm at a fire sale price. Marcus stayed on as a senior advisor, which was corporate speak for we're letting him pretend he still matters. I didn't feel satisfaction anymore. I just felt empty when I thought about him. Like he was a problem I'd solved and moved past. But he wasn't done with me yet. The email came on a Friday evening. I was packing up to leave, planning to meet Daniel for dinner at our favorite Italian place. Subject line, a personal apology. From Marcus Sterling. I almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity, that dangerous thing, made me open it. Emma, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I know I have no right to ask for your time or attention. But I wanted to say something I should have said years ago. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking credit for your work. I'm sorry for promoting Jenna over you. I'm sorry for not seeing your value until it was too late. You were the best thing that ever happened to Sterling, and I treated you like you were replaceable. I was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I don't deserve that either. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. You weren't just good at your job. You were exceptional. And I let my ego and my insecurity blind me to that. You built something incredible with Catalyst. Something I could never have built. You did it with integrity and hard work and actual care for people. Everything I wasn't capable of. I hope you're happy, Emma. I really do. Marcus, I read it 3 times. Sat there in my empty office as the sun set outside my window, painting the city in shades of orange and gold. Was he being sincere? Was this a manipulation? Another angle? I didn't know. And I realized I didn't care. His apology didn't change anything. It didn't undo the years of stolen credit and humiliation. It didn't erase the meets expectations review or the lawsuit or any of it. But maybe it was closure. For both of us. I didn't respond. Not that night. Not ever. Some things don't need a response. Some victories are complete just as they are. I closed my laptop. Grabbed my coat. Met Daniel for dinner. We talked about his new photo series. About a trip we were planning to Iceland. About whether we should adopt a dog. We didn't talk about work at all. And it was perfect. Year 5 of Catalyst. We crossed 30 million in revenue. Expanded internationally. Opened an office in London. I promoted Priya to COO. She deserved it. She'd been with me from almost the beginning, and she understood the company's values as well as I did. I started delegating more. Not because someone told me I was a bottleneck, but because I had built a team I actually trusted. People who shared my vision and my ethics. I still worked with clients directly. That would never change. It was what I loved. But I didn't have to work 80-hour weeks anymore. Didn't have to sacrifice everything. On my 34th birthday, Daniel surprised me with a weekend trip to a cabin upstate. No phone service. No internet. Just us in the woods and a fireplace. We sat on the porch, drinking wine, watching the stars. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Regret what? Leaving Sterling. Starting over. All the risk. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said. Best decision I ever made. Even though you had to fight so hard? Especially because I had to fight so hard. Easy things don't mean anything. This means something. He squeezed my hand. You're pretty amazing, you know that? I laughed. I'm stubborn. There's a difference. No, he said. There's really not. 6 months after that, Daniel proposed. On a completely ordinary Tuesday, in our apartment, while we were making breakfast. "Emma," he said, holding a ring I later learned he'd been carrying around for 3 weeks waiting for the perfect moment before realizing there was no perfect moment. "Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even finished the question. We got married in a small ceremony 6 months later. Just close friends and family. Priya was my maid of honor. We held it at a botanical garden, surrounded by flowers and light and people who actually loved us. No corporate networking. No business cards exchanged. Just joy. Marcus wasn't invited. Obviously. But I heard through the grapevine that he'd gotten divorced. That Sterling had been fully absorbed into the parent company. That he'd retired early, which was code for being pushed out. I didn't feel happy about it. I didn't feel sad either. I just felt nothing. He was irrelevant to my life now. But the universe wasn't quite done with our story. Year 7 of Catalyst. We were closing in on $50 million in revenue. 120 employees across 4 offices. We'd been approached by 3 different private equity firms about acquisition. I'd turned them all down. Catalyst wasn't for sale. I was in London, meeting with a potential client, when I got a call from Priya. "Emma, you need to see this." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. But Sterling just declared bankruptcy. It's all over the news." I pulled up the articles on my phone. Sure enough. Sterling Associates, once a prominent consulting firm, had filed for Chapter 7 liquidation. The company that had employed 200 people at its peak was shutting down completely. The articles mentioned the failed acquisition. The lawsuit against a former employee that had backfired. The loss of major clients. The inability to adapt to changing markets. One article, in Businessweek, had a quote from an industry analyst: "Sterling's downfall is a cautionary tale about what happens when companies prioritize ego over talent." They had a generational star in Emma Chen and they let her walk away. Everything that happened after was just slow-motion collapse. I sat in my London hotel room, reading these articles, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. I'd won. Completely. Totally. Undeniably. Sterling was gone. I was thriving. The narrative was clear: I'd been right, they'd been wrong, and the market had delivered its verdict. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Tired of thinking about Sterling. Tired of that chapter of my life taking up any space in my head at all. I called Daniel. Heard his voice, warm and familiar across the ocean. "Hey, I just saw the news." "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I am. It's weird. I thought I'd feel something more. But I just feel ready to move on." "Then move on," he said simply. "You don't owe that story any more of your energy." He was right. I spent the rest of my time in London focused on the future, not the past. Landed the client. Met with our UK team. Started planning an expansion into Germany. When I got back to New York, there was a letter waiting for me. Forwarded from our old office address. Handwritten envelope. Inside was a single page, also handwritten. "Emma, you probably saw that Sterling is done. I'm not writing to ask for anything or to make excuses. I'm writing because I want you to know something. You were right about everything. The way we treated you was inexcusable. The way I treated you was inexcusable. I told myself I was building a company, but I was really just protecting my own ego. You built something real. Something that matters. Something that will outlast both of us. I'm moving to Vermont. Going to try my hand at teaching. Maybe I can help the next generation not make my mistakes. I'm genuinely happy for your success. You earned every bit of it. Take care of yourself, Emma." Marcus this time, I did respond. Not with a long letter. Just 3 words, sent via text to his old number, hoping he still had it. Good luck, Marcus. He replied an hour later. Thank you. You too. And that was it. The end of a story that had defined half a decade of my life. I put the letter in a drawer and never looked at it again. Year 9 of Catalyst. We hit 100 million in revenue. 200 employees. 6 offices globally. I was 37. Daniel and I had 2 dogs now, rescue mutts we'd named Chaos and Mayhem. They lived up to their names. We bought a house in the suburbs with a yard and good schools, even though we didn't have kids yet. Maybe someday. Maybe not. We were happy either way. Catalyst had become something bigger than me. It had its own identity now. Its own culture. People joined because they believed in what we stood for, not because they knew my story. We'd been named one of the best places to work 3 years running. Our employee retention rate was 94%. Our client satisfaction scores were off the charts. I still worked with clients. Still did the thing I loved. But I'd also become something I never expected, a mentor. Young consultants reached out to me constantly. Women especially. Asking for advice. For guidance. For permission, almost, to believe they could do what I did. I met with as many as I could. Answered emails. Did video calls. Shared everything I'd learned. One woman, 26 years old, reminded me so much of myself it was almost scary. Her name was Taylor. She worked for a mid-sized firm. She was brilliant. Undervalued. Frustrated. They take credit for everything I do, she told me over coffee. My boss presents my ideas in meetings like they're his. I'm doing director-level work for associate-level pay. I knew that feeling. Intimately. What do you want to do about it? I asked. I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. How did you do it? How did you have the courage to leave? I thought about that. Really thought about it. It wasn't courage, I said finally. It was desperation. I stayed until I literally couldn't anymore. Until my self-respect was more important than my paycheck. I don't recommend waiting that long. So what should I do? Start building your exit now. Document everything. Save your money. Make connections outside your current firm. And when you're ready, when you have a foundation, walk away and don't look back. She nodded, taking notes like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. One more thing, I said. Whatever you build, build it with integrity. It's the only thing they can't take from you. The only thing that matters in the end. 6 months later, Taylor left her firm. Started her own consultancy. It was small, scrappy, barely breaking even. I gave her some advice. Made some introductions. Sent her a client who was too small for Catalyst but perfect for a solo practitioner just starting out. She sent me a thank you note that made me cry. You showed me it was possible. Thank you for being proof that the good guys can win. I put that note on my desk. Next to a photo of Daniel and the dogs. Next to a small trophy our team had won for workplace culture. Reminders of what actually mattered. Year 10 of Catalyst. A decade since I'd walked away from Sterling with nothing but a box of personal items and a burning need to prove I was more than what they'd reduced me to. We threw a huge company party. Rented out an entire venue. Invited current employees, former employees, clients, partners. Over 500 people showed up. I gave a speech. Not about me. About us. About what we'd built together. 10 years ago, I left a job where I felt invisible. Where my work was valued but I wasn't. Where I was treated as a resource, not a person. I promised myself that if I ever built something, it would be different. It would be a place where people mattered. Where credit was given honestly. Where success was shared, not hoarded. I looked around the room. Saw faces of people who'd been with me from the beginning. People who'd joined last month. People who'd left and come back. People who'd grown and changed and thrived. You all made that promise real. Every single person in this room. This isn't my company anymore. It's ours. And I'm so incredibly proud of what we've become. The applause was deafening. Priya was crying. Half the room was crying. Daniel squeezed my hand from the front row. Mouthed I love you. Later that night, after most people had left, a small group of us sat around a table. The original team. The ones who'd been there when we were working out of my apartment, when landing a $10,000 contract felt like winning the lottery. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd stayed at Sterling? Priya asked. Sometimes, I admitted. I probably would have been miserable for a few more years. Maybe they would have eventually fired me. Maybe I would have just faded. Become one of those people who stays in a bad situation because change is scary. But you didn't, she said. No. I didn't. What made the difference? I thought about it. About Marcus's condescending smile. About Jenna's fake sympathy. About that performance review that said meets expectations when I'd exceeded every possible measure of success. I got angry enough, I said. And then I got strategic. And then I got lucky. In that order. It wasn't luck, Priya said firmly. It was skill and timing and you being willing to bet on yourself when no one else would. Maybe she was right. Maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was that I'd done it. I'd survived. I'd thrived. I'd built something that mattered. The next morning, I woke up in my house. Daniel was already up, taking the dogs for a walk. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom windows. I checked my phone out of habit. Email from a potential client. Message from Taylor, asking advice about a tricky negotiation. LinkedIn notification about someone mentioning Catalyst in a post. Normal things. Good things. My life now. I got up. Made coffee. Sat on the back porch watching birds at the feeder Daniel had installed last spring. And I realized something. I'd spent so much energy being angry at Marcus. Being motivated by proving him wrong. Being driven by the need to show everyone that I was more than what Sterling had made me feel. But somewhere along the way, that had stopped being the point. The point now was building something good. Taking care of the people who trusted me. Doing work I was proud of. Living a life I actually enjoyed. The revenge was complete. But it had transformed into something better. Something sustainable. Something real. Marcus had thought I was easy to replace. He'd been wrong. But not because I was irreplaceable. Because I was resilient. Because I could build something from nothing. Because I refused to let someone else's limited vision define my potential. That's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you something to prove. But only to yourself. Not to them. Year 12 of Catalyst. We'd grown past the point where I could know every employee's name. It bothered me at first, but Priya reminded me it was a good problem to have. You built something bigger than you, she said. That's success, Emma. Not failure. We'd expanded into Asia. Hired a brilliant managing director in Singapore who understood markets I never would. She was better at her job than I would have been. That felt good. Like I'd learned the lesson Sterling never had, hire people better than you and get out of their way. I still consulted directly sometimes. Usually on the biggest, most complex accounts. The ones that needed someone with 15 years of experience and pattern recognition that only came from seeing 1,000 different problems. But mostly, I focused on vision. On culture. On making sure Catalyst stayed true to what we'd built it to be. We implemented a profit-sharing program. Everyone who'd been with the company more than a year got a percentage of annual profits. It cost us millions. It was the best money we ever spent. People worked harder because they knew they'd see the direct benefit. They cared more because it was genuinely theirs. We started a fellowship program for promising young consultants from underrepresented backgrounds. Paid them real salaries. Trained them properly. Gave them actual opportunities. 3 of our fellows from the first cohort were now senior consultants. 1 was on track to make partner. This was the legacy I wanted. Not just a successful company. A place that changed lives. That gave people the opportunities I'd had to fight for. I got an email one day from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, you don't know me, but... I almost deleted it. These usually were spam or sales pitches. But something made me open it. Ms. Chen, my name is David Park. I'm currently an analyst at Sterling Associates, or what's left of it. I know that name probably means nothing good to you. I've heard the stories. Everyone has. I'm writing because I'm stuck. I've been here 3 years. I'm good at my work. Really good. But I'm invisible. They promote people with connections, not competence. They take credit for my analyses. They pay me barely enough to survive in this city. I read about you. About what you built. About how you left and started Catalyst. I don't know if you take on people like me. I don't know if you even read emails from strangers. But I had to try. I want to be part of something that matters. Something where my work counts. Where I count. If there's any chance, any way I could talk to you, I'd be incredibly grateful. Respectfully, David Park. I stared at that email for a long time. Sterling Associates still existed? I'd thought they were completely gone. Apparently, some zombie version of the company was still limping along, still chewing up talented people and spitting them out. I could have deleted the email. Could have said we weren't hiring. Could have protected myself from any association with that name. Instead, I forwarded it to Priya with a note, "Can we find a spot for this guy? I want to meet him first, but I have a feeling." We brought David in for an interview. He was nervous. Overprepared. He'd brought a portfolio of his work that was frankly incredible. Complex financial models. Market analyses. Strategic frameworks. "Did you do all this yourself?" I asked. "Yes. I mean, I had access to some data, but the analysis is all mine." "And your boss presented these?" He looked uncomfortable. "Sometimes." He said it was more impactful coming from a senior person. That I'd get my chance eventually. I knew that story. I'd lived that story. "David, can I tell you something? Eventually never comes. Not at places like that. The system isn't designed to reward you. It's designed to extract value from you." He nodded. He knew. Of course he knew. "How would you feel about joining Catalyst?" His eyes went wide. "Seriously?" "Seriously. We have an opening for a senior analyst. It's not glamorous. You'll work hard. But you'll get credit for your work. You'll be mentored properly. And when you're ready to move up, we'll actually promote you based on merit, not politics." He started 2 weeks later. Fit in immediately. Within 6 months, he was leading projects. Within a year, he'd brought in 2 new clients through connections from his MBA program. He became one of our stars. And he never forgot what it felt like to be undervalued. which made him a great mentor to the people who came after him. The cycle continued. People who'd been burned by companies like Sterling found their way to Catalyst. We gave them a second chance. They gave us their loyalty and their best work. It wasn't charity. It was good business. Happy employees who feel valued work harder, stay longer, and care more. It's not complicated. It's just rare. Year 15 of Catalyst. I was 42 years old. We'd crossed 200 million in revenue. 400 employees globally. 8 offices. Forbes had named me one of the top 50 entrepreneurs under 50. I'd given a TED Talk about building human-centered businesses. It had 7 million views. I'd written that book the literary agent had asked about years ago. It was called The Catalyst Effect: How Caring About People Built a Company. It had been on the business bestseller list for 16 weeks. I'd used the book advance to start a foundation. The Catalyst Foundation for Business Ethics. We gave grants to researchers studying workplace culture. Funded programs teaching ethical leadership. Sponsored scholarships for students from underrepresented backgrounds interested in business. Daniel and I had eventually decided to adopt 2 kids, siblings. Maya was 8. James was 6. They were chaotic and beautiful and exhausting, and I loved them more than I'd thought possible. My life looked nothing like what I'd imagined at 26, walking into Sterling Associates for the first time, desperate to prove myself. It was better. I was in my office late one evening. Everyone else had gone home. I was reviewing a proposal for a potential client when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Emma Chen. Emma. It's Marcus. I froze. I hadn't heard his voice in over a decade. It sounded older. Tired. Marcus. This is unexpected. I know. I'm sorry to bother you. I got your number from a mutual connection. I hope that's okay. What do you need? He laughed. It was a sad sound. Nothing. I'm not asking for anything. I saw your TED Talk. Read your book. I wanted to tell you something. I waited. You were right about everything. Every single thing. I spent years being bitter about what happened. Blaming you for Sterling's failure. Telling myself you'd stolen clients, poisoned people against me, all of it. But none of that was true. The truth is that I failed. I failed to see your value. I failed to build a culture worth staying for. I failed to understand that people aren't resources to be managed. They're humans to be respected. He paused. I could hear him breathing, shaky and uncertain. I'm teaching now. At a small business school in Vermont. And I tell my students about you. About what I did wrong. About what you did right. I use you as a case study in leadership. With your permission, I'd like to keep doing that. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still angry. Would always be angry, probably, at how he'd treated me. But another part of me felt something unexpected. Pity. And maybe, the beginning of forgiveness. You can keep using my story, I said. If it helps even one person avoid treating their employees the way you treated me, then something good came from it. Thank you, Emma. And I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change anything. But I am genuinely, deeply sorry. I know, I said. And I did. I believed him. It didn't erase what he'd done, but belief was something. Your kids are lucky, he said. Your employees are lucky. You built something beautiful. I built something real, I corrected. Beautiful is subjective. Real is what matters. You're right. As always. We talked for another 10 minutes. He told me about his life now. Simpler. Quieter. He seemed smaller somehow. Not diminished. Just less inflated. More honest. When we hung up, I sat in the silence of my empty office. Looked out at the city lights. Thought about the young woman I'd been. The one who'd walked into a conference room and shut off a projector because she knew there was a better way. She'd been terrified. Uncertain. Desperate to prove herself. But she'd also been right. I pulled out my phone. Texted Daniel, on my way home. Love you. He responded immediately, kids are asking for you. Maya wants to show you something she built with Legos. James spilled juice on the dog. Normal chaos. Hurry home. I smiled. Packed up my bag. Turned off my office light. As I walked to the elevator, I passed the wall where we displayed our company values. 5 simple statements: people first. Integrity always. Credit where it's due. Success shared. Care deeply. They weren't just words on a wall. They were how we actually operated. Every day. Every decision. I'd built this because someone made me feel small. But I'd sustained it because I wanted people to feel big. That was the difference. That was everything. The elevator arrived. I stepped in. Watched the floors count down as I descended. Ground level. The doors opened. I walked out into the cool evening air. The city was alive around me. People rushing home. Vendors closing up. The subway rumbling beneath the streets. I was just one person in a city of millions. In a world of billions. But I'd made a difference. For 400 people who worked for me. For thousands of clients we'd helped. For readers who'd found something useful in my book. For students who'd hear my story and know they could do it too. Marcus had thought I was easy to replace. He'd been wrong. Not because I was special. But because I cared. Really cared. About the work. About the people. About building something that mattered. And that's not replaceable. That's the most valuable thing in the world. I walked to the subway station. Swiped my card. Waited for the train. When it arrived, I found a seat. Pulled out my phone. Scrolled through my messages. One from Taylor, just landed my biggest client yet. Thank you for everything you taught me. One from David, the analysis you wanted is done. I think you'll be impressed. Also, thank you for giving me a chance when no one else would. One from Priya, tomorrow's board meeting agenda is ready. Also, we need to talk about the London expansion. I have ideas. One from my daughter Maya, sent from Daniel's phone, come home I made a castle and James says it's ugly but it's not. I smiled. Typed back, on my way. Can't wait to see it. I bet it's amazing. The train rumbled through the dark tunnels. Taking me home. To my family. To my real life. The one that mattered more than any business success ever could. I'd started this journey angry. Hurt. Desperate to prove I was worth more than Marcus Sterling thought I was. But I'd finished it happy. Fulfilled. Knowing I'd built something good. And that's the real victory. Not the money. Not the recognition. Not even the satisfaction of watching the people who underestimated you realize they were wrong. The real victory is building a life you're proud of. Work you believe in. A family you love. A legacy that matters. Marcus Sterling thought I was easy to replace. He thought wrong. But in the end, that was his loss, not mine. Because I replaced him. I replaced what he represented. I replaced the entire system that said people were disposable and only results mattered. I built something better. And better always wins. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not easily. But eventually, always. The train pulled into my stop. I stood up. Walked out onto the platform. Climbed the stairs to street level. My phone buzzed. Daniel again, kids are in bed. I saved you dinner. Love you. I picked up my pace. Walked faster. Almost running now, eager to get home. To my real life. To the people who loved me for who I was, not what I could produce. 20 blocks later, I turned onto my street. Saw the lights on in our house. Warm and welcoming. I walked up the steps. Put my key in the lock. Opened the door. Mom's home. James yelled from upstairs. Did you see my castle? Maya called down. Not yet, but I'm coming. Daniel appeared from the kitchen. Kissed me hello. How was your day? Good, I said. Really good. I'll tell you about it later. But I probably wouldn't. Because that part of my life, the part where Marcus Sterling mattered at all, was over. Done. Finished. This was my life now. This house. This family. This moment. I'd fought my way here. Through betrayal and doubt and fear. Through the risk of starting over with nothing but belief in myself. And I'd won. Not because I destroyed Marcus Sterling. He'd destroyed himself. I'd won because I built something worth building. Became someone worth becoming. That's the story. That's the truth. They thought I was easy to replace. They learned better. And I learned that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's becoming so successful that they become irrelevant. That's what I did. That's what anyone can do if they're willing to bet on themselves. To work hard. To care deeply. To refuse to accept being undervalued. So if you're in a situation like I was, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me: you're not replaceable. You're valuable. And if the people around you can't see that, find people who can. Or build something yourself. It's scary. It's hard. But it's possible. I'm proof. Catalyst Consulting is proof. 400 employees and thousands of satisfied clients are proof. You don't have to accept being made to feel small. You can walk away. You can start over. You can win. Not because you're special. But because you care. And in a world full of people and companies that don't care, that's everything. That's the lesson. That's what matters. The rest is just details. I walked upstairs. Looked at Maya's Lego castle. It was elaborate and creative and definitely not ugly. It's perfect, I told her. You're an architect. She beamed at me. Just like you, Mom. You build things too. I do, I agreed. I do. Later, after the kids were asleep and Daniel and I were sitting on the couch with glasses of wine and the dog sprawled at our feet, he asked, "So what happened today? You seem different." "Marcus called," I said. His eyebrows shot up. "Really? What did he want?" "To apologize. To tell me I was right. And it was nice to hear. But it didn't change anything. I already knew I was right." Daniel laughed. "That's my wife. Confident as ever. Not confident. Just certain. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" I thought about it. Confidence is thinking you can do something. Certainty is knowing you already did. He raised his glass. "To certainty, then." "To certainty," I agreed. We clinked glasses. Drank in comfortable silence. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, I was exactly where I wanted to be. I'd been underestimated. Undervalued. pushed aside. And I'd turned it into the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. Because it forced me to bet on myself. To build something mine. To prove, not to them, but to myself, that I was capable of more than anyone thought. Even me. Especially me. That's the story. That's the truth. That's how you turn being easy to replace into becoming irreplaceable. You don't do it by being better than them. You do it by being better than you were yesterday. Every single day. Until one day you look back and realize you've become someone you're proud to be. That's what I did. That's what you can do too. And if people underestimate you along the way? Good. Let them. Their doubt is fuel. Their dismissal is motivation. Their mistake is your opportunity. Take it. Use it. Build something they never dreamed you could build. And then, when they come crawling back, when they realize what they lost, when they want to merge or partner or somehow reclaim what they threw away, you get to say no. Calmly. Confidently. Certainly. Because you don't need them anymore. You never did. You just needed to need yourself. That's the lesson. That's the ending. That's the truth. I was easy to replace. Until I wasn't. Until I became the person everyone else wanted to be. The leader everyone wanted to work for. The success everyone wanted to replicate. And I did it by caring. By working hard. By treating people like humans. By building something real. It's not complicated. It's just rare. Be rare. Be real. Be you. And watch how quickly replaceable becomes irreplaceable. That's my story. I hope it helps you write yours.